Hello everybody, it's Fight Club Hobbs. Welcome to another episode of GVN Live, and this one's going to be a weird one today, so we're going to do a little bit of experimentation again. Joining me today is the gamer Keith, who is apparently down deep in the water.
Yep, in Rapture again. I like my second home over there. You see where it says the casino? Yeah, I live right underneath there.
Let's not talk about casinos right now. It's not been a good day for those.
Or Fair enough.
Yeah. And with me as well is Mr. Mark B. Writing, and I'm afraid to ask how you're feeling today, sir.
Oh, I'm fucking exhausted. How are you?
Probably not as exhausted. I believe you said you had some really long meetings today.
Yeah, I am presently in Baltimore, Maryland, attending a security conference, which is basically a 3-day thing where, I don't know, we fucking listen to vendors talk a lot, basically. Today was a 12-hour day. So I am wiped out, and as soon as we're done here, I'm fucking going to bed.
Fair enough. You probably really need to be in bed. In fact, if you want, feel free to leave in the middle of the show. I won't be insulted at all.
No, that's fine.
So, Mark, Keith, what have you been up to lately, brother?
Lots of stuff. Unfortunately, we all have those work lives that we have going on at the minute, and I unfortunately work in retail, so it's starting to get a little busy, but I find time for my gaming at this point, and my dog is like messing with my green screen. It's kind of funny at the second, so if you start seeing stuff in this corner over here, you know why. But anyway, I've been playing some good games. I got Mario and Rabbids on the Wii, or I'm sorry, not Wii, the Switch. Woo. And I got Cuphead, and I'm actually enjoying both of those games very, very much at this point.
Okay. How about you, Mark? Have you been playing anything before you headed off on your journey?
Working on Danganronpa 3, or Danganronpa V3, I should be clear, because Danganronpa 3 is the anime based on it. I've been playing that pretty regularly since it came out on Tuesday, because Sean Madsen asked me if I would do a guide for it, and I said, sure, I'll give that a shot. Why the fuck not? And then realized, oh yeah, I had to go to Baltimore for like 4 days. So he's not going to see this, but I hate you, Sean. Go to hell.
Poor Sean works late as well, which is why he never joins our show, I believe.
Whatever, fuck him anyway.
Yeah.
In terms of playing, I'm probably getting close to beating Ys 8. It's been a really fun game. I'm really enjoying it. I think on the back burner, I have Divinity 2, Original Sin 2 on the back burner, which will be the next game I jump into. I also picked up Cuphead, which I wanted to play on the PC, so I bought it on the Xbox One, which, Windows allows you to play some of their games on both platforms. And the game's been crashing, so I'm probably going to have to end up playing it on the Xbox One soon. And I just got Mutant Football League, which is so fucking awesome. It's a shame that the guy failed the first Kickstarter, because he had a lot of really interesting features he wanted to add into the game, but hey, he stuck with it and had a more reasonable second Kickstarter funded, and it so far it looks like a good game. Maybe we'll get like future DLC or anything like that, which would be nice to see.
Now, what's with Mutant Football League in particular for it? I remember the Kickstarter for it, but was it that's like kind of drawing you in at the second, I should say, because I'm intrigued now.
What do you mean by drawing in?
Like, what's its gimmick? What's its what's making
League,
you think that could get DLC more so?
More or less the fact that a lot of people are now talking about it now that it's in open beta and you can buy into it with the early access. A lot of people have now been getting their free beta keys and whatnot from, I don't know if it was on Indiegogo or on Kickstarter that it got funded on, but People have been talking about it a lot, saying it's a really great throwback to the first game,
the original.
The original Mutant League Football, which this is a spiritual successor to, because EA owns the rights to the other. Ooh, excuse me. But why I think that is because it turns out this may be a very successful game. A lot of more people might be buying into it once it actually gets a full release. And I mean, right now there's 17 teams. For a game that just came out on early access, this is what it has. It has 17 teams. It's got a completely fully playable game. It's got a full season mode. It's got online mode, although I haven't had a chance to test that out. I'm sure they're going to have other features that might come along the way, like maybe make your own mutant or something like that, which would be kind of cool, to be truthfully honest. Or make your own team, or even have like a friend-hosted league. Or actually, you know what? A league amongst your friends might actually exist. I just haven't looked too deeply into it right now. But it's a pretty awesome game for what it is, which is basic bare bones of what the guy originally had planned for it, which even at bare bones, it's still a pretty damn good game. So,
cool.
I mean, you should definitely check it out. I don't even know if we're allowed to stream it, unless he wants it to be streamed. I don't know how, some
it's
betas
free
work.
marketing, so I can't imagine why he wouldn't in particular.
I mean, if it's an early access, like, sometimes it could be a closed beta or an open beta, and it's not allowed to be streamed yet. Who knows? I mean, he might have worked out something with Twitch, kind of like the way Atlas did something with Twitch, which, how did that work again, Mark, with Persona 5?
There's like a specific cutoff point where you have to stop playing it. Like, I think it's like November or October. I don't remember exactly when it is, but it was like July, and then they ended up like pushing it back to like October or November.
And that was what, to prevent spoilers for the game, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. So who knows? Maybe they might have something like that in play. I believe they had even when MechWarrior Online was in beta, and I got into it. I think no one was allowed to stream that, even though I think they might have selected a small amount of people, but no one was really allowed to stream it. So it might be the same way. I don't know. I'll try it out. I'll try to look for it on Twitch later.
You know what game I actually really wanted to buy when I was at a video game con? I really wanted to get Steel Battalion. They actually had the full thing there, but so effing expensive, man. So effing expensive just for one game.
Yep, only
At the
one.
time it came out, it was like $200, I think. And
It still is.
I'm surprised it hasn't gone even higher.
That sounds pretty reasonable if it's still $200 to $300 at this point.
I'm not saying that it's not reasonable. It's just very, very expensive just to play for one game, and plus you got to be committed to it. Like that controller setup, as if everybody is not familiar with it. I know you guys are familiar with it, but it's huge. Like the actual control console, like it's effing huge for that matter. And that's what she said. But
here we go. Man, I'm yawning way too much. I need to exercise a little bit more, so I'm putting less weight on my goddamn chest so I can breathe.
That usually is helpful.
It is. So, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank all three of you for tuning in today. We are going to be talking a little bit about, the Tomb Raider trailer that came out about a week and a half ago. And then we're going to dissect it and give you our thoughts about it. And then we're going to try and do something different. We're going to try and make a movie, try and understand why it is so hard for the movie industry, the Hollywood, to make a video game. Stupid cat. Make a movie based on a video game franchise. So in this particular scenario, we're going to try and make a Metroid movie because Metroid. So to start
just
things,
like Metroid.
Absolutely. So since you recently saw the trailer, Keith, at the last second before the show started, how about you give us your initial thoughts about it? Like, and describe what you saw too.
Well, pretty much is, from what I can see on it, it's more of the newer Tomb Raider, so the Square Enix Tomb Raider that has just been recently released for it, where Lara Croft is a little bit more athletic and a little bit more to tone for it. As far as it actually going to the actual story, it seems like, again, very, very close to the new one. Like I saw the ship scene and then like her diving out and then everything along those lines for it. So I'm guessing they're trying to interpret the new game for not really so much of the old series that pretty much everybody knows and loves at this point. And then, I don't know. Honestly, it seems like an interesting reboot because the first one, or actually, they made two of them, if I'm not mistaken, both with Angelina Jolie. One with ridiculously like large boobies, and then the other one where it was like her normal size boobies, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember. Boobs are boobs.
Well, these are things you have to pay attention to, Hubs. Gosh darn it. Damn it.
They're boobs. You enjoy them no matter what. Anyway.
Very true. But then after that, again, I think they were trying to like make like her to be quite the badass. They have like this whole like Rambo thing that she's trying to do with the bow and arrow. Again, honestly, I guess I'll have to watch it. Honestly, I liked the first two Tomb Raiders as far as the games on the PlayStation, but I never really was a huge Tomb Raider fan to really be like, oh, well, this is wrong for that, so on and so forth. So I'm a little less opinionated on it, as more so it just doesn't look too good. But I will say that freaking actress has ripped as shit, though. Holy hell.
Yeah, I forget her name. I do know that they picked her like a year ago, and there was some buzz about it, like, oh, why are you going to pick her? Why aren't you going to pick the voice actress for the recent Lara Croft Tomb Raider franchise, or Tomb Raider series? And,
Alicia Vikander, I think is how you pronounce her name.
Yeah, but people are all talking about they want Camille Luddington. I think that's her name proper. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. I thought it was that. But
yeah, Camilla Luddington.
Camilla. Okay. Yeah, they wanted her because she's so associated with Tomb Raider because she's the voice actress for the franchise. However, my initial thoughts was watching this trailer. I was just like, okay, so they're cherry picking stuff that they liked from the reboot, and they're going to try and make a movie around this. It looks like, which is typical. I was like, they cherry picked ideas from the franchise, and then they tried to make a movie out of it with the first two, like in terms of grand scope of things. Like, okay, so there's usually an evil organization of some kind that Laura's having a race against to get an ancient artifact. So we'll take that idea and we'll make it the Illuminati in the first movie, and then we'll make it some guy who wants to get the Ark of the Covenant or Pandora's box in the second movie. And then, of course, other things they cherry-picked. Oh, yeah, let's get an actress with big boobs.
Well, it's because, let's face it, that's what they were trying to kind of get at, was that pretty much Lara Croft was very, very well endowed back in the day.
Well,
because
and have the move and skill set of Indiana Jones. But
nobody compared to Dr. Jones, damn it.
No. Now, looking at the trailer, I mean, it looked like it was really just, typical action movie trailer, just highlighting all of the crazy scenes that we're most definitely gonna see in this movie, including the scene that looks like it was trying to captivate or reimagine a scene from the beginning of the game where her ship is getting shipwrecked, it breaks in half, and she has to jump from one side to the other to safety. That part actually confused me just looking at the scene itself because it broke in half. It was a very tiny ship, and she jumps and she goes nowhere.
But here was the other thing with that. I remember watching the original trailer for that on the Xbox conference, and it was awfully sexual. So I wonder if they're going to use all the groans and moans, like, I'm falling.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if, in regards to Laura's character development, if they're going to follow the reboot, are they going to actually make her a wannabe researcher who then becomes the adventurer of that we all know and love, kind of like what they did with the first reboot game? Or are they going to just make her she is an archaeologist, an adventurer, and she just happens to have some misadventure along the way, and that's the boat and getting stuck on an island and whatnot. Like, I don't know what's gonna. I don't know. A lot about what I saw in this trailer just leaves me with so much uncertainty that I don't know if I can really get excited for it. What are your thoughts, Mark?
Well, one second. Let's start from the beginning. I don't have any particular attachment to the idea of Camilla Liddington being the Tomb Raider actress for this film, partly because I don't give a shit about the modern Tomb Raider games. And I've not been shy about saying I don't give a shit about the modern Tomb Raider games. If you like the original reboot Tomb Raider, that's fine. I don't, you like what you like, whatever. But
you're allowed to like bad things. I think said.
I don't even think that game is bad. It's not for me. I don't care for that particular version of the character. I don't think the remake is necessary. I don't think it does anything particularly worthwhile in developing that character. I feel like that character can work, but it requires a lot of effort. Rise of the Tomb Raider is a fucking terrible plot, though, and if you like that plot, you like bad things. Sorry. But I don't have any particular attachment to the idea of Camilla Liddington being the Tomb Raider actress. That said, she doesn't especially look like Lara Croft, whether it be either version. So I feel like from an aesthetic perspective, you're probably going to get something closer to what you want with Alicia Vikander, who's the actual person playing Lara Croft.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really also worth noting that Alicia Vikander has experience in action movies, whereas, Camilla Liddington has been in like a lot of, drama.
Yeah.
More so. And also,
well, she's in Grey's Anatomy, I think.
She was in Grey's Anatomy, yes.
Yeah.
Woo.
And it's also worth noting that at the time that they were doing the filming for the Tomb Raider movie, according to Wikipedia, Camilla Liddington would have just been wrapping up everything that she was doing for the voice acting for Justice League Dark. So, contractually speaking, she probably was not available to even negotiate or do that at the time. And it probably would have been a particularly close shave for them to make that happen. Plus, there could be any one of a number of other contracts or things that she signed on to that she couldn't get out of. Like, we don't know what her particular schedule is at the moment. It's very possible she might not have been able to even do that role, or might have just said, fucking hell, I don't want to do an action movie.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with that particular casting. I appreciate why people do, but let's just have a little perspective. Further to the point, I watched this trailer and I read up on the movie, and I don't understand why this movie is going to exist.
Because they can?
Yeah, but there are lots of things that we can do that we probably shouldn't do,
Yeah.
Like, I can strangle a person to death. I probably
should you, though? Probably not.
Right. The fact that this film can exist doesn't really qualify that it should, because let's be clear, this is a Tomb Raider movie that is being made by people who don't understand what it would take to make a Tomb Raider movie. Again, I'm not a fan of Reboot Lara, but I understand that character better than Warner Brothers does. I mean, like, let's just think about this. The original character of Lara Croft is purposefully meant to be unrealistic. She is purposefully meant to be Indiana Batman. She's Superwoman for all logistical intents and purposes. She's trained in all relevant martial arts and gun stuff. She can speak many different languages. She's super smart. She's Indiana Batman. That is the easiest possible way that you can define that character and everything you need to know about her.
Or you can just say she's the perfect woman.
I mean,
don't go that far, but
I mean, she is the Uberfrau, I guess, if you want to go in that particular direction of it. But I mean, she's also very standoffish and doesn't particularly like people. So except for like the people that are specifically useful to her in some capacity or another. So I would not call her perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
I think you just called her a sociopath.
Hey, that
She
could be a
does murder
possibility.
lots of people, although I would actually note that there is probably more of an argument for her to be a sociopath than reboot Laura, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
Anyway, the original Laura is wish fulfillment, whether it be for men who want to objectify her or for women who want to kick ass like her. She's a form of wish fulfillment. She works because she's unrealistic. Modern Laura is a little bit more difficult to reconcile in context because, you know, she's like a 22-year-old who has basically spent her whole entire life studying to be like an archaeologist / survival nut. And you kind of have to imagine her having had this life that is just unfulfilling and fucking depressing in order to be able to reconcile all of the shit that she knows how to do. But she's supposed to be realistic, so you can't just write it off as, well, she's an unrealistic character because she's supposed to be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you can do it, but it's difficult. The film version, from what the trailer shows and what they've said in write-ups of it, is supposed to take the idea of the character of Lara Croft as she exists now, or take the story of the character of Lara Croft as she exists now, the rebooted character, and attach it to a character who's been bumming around as a bike messenger for a few years. A stereotypical lazy millennial is going to be able to do the crazy acrobatic shit that Lara Croft that fuck you.
Hey, bike messengers have to, have those sick bike skills. You never
like
know.
they basically straight up say that she's been doing nothing with her life for 8 years. And I'm like, yeah, but she's going to survive on on Devil's Island or whatever. Get the fuck out of here. They're trying to thread this needle where they want to do this movie that is simultaneously uber realistic and unrealistic. And I think the problem is that Warner Brothers is attempting to do one of the old style Tomb Raider movies, but in the modern Tomb Raider existence. And it's
no.
Even as somebody who doesn't particularly care for that iteration of the character, why would you do this? You are not going to satisfy anyone. You're not going to satisfy people who like the original character because they're not going to be particularly happy with the turn that you have given to this character or the fact that it's being associated with reboot Lara. You're not going to satisfy anybody who likes reboot Lara because it's going to be a big dumb action movie. It's not a good idea. It's not particularly well done. And look, Warner Brothers, frankly speaking, literally has no idea what the hell they are doing anymore as a film development house. And I really don't think that is an especially contentious view, unless you like Suicide Squad, in which case you are too stupid to talk to me.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Well, if anything, I go back to my whole Square Enix just hates money sort of thing. But then again, they're pretty much Warner Brothers is probably paying them for the license. So God only knows what the hell's going to happen from that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what ultimately comes out of the whole situation is that they have nothing they have nothing to offer at this point. They have nothing to offer that is of any particular value as far as it relates to creating a thing that people would want to see, unless it's particularly dumb and you're particularly bored. And originally it kind of felt like they were just being lazy because they wanted all of the DC shit to make Marvel money. But with the Tomb Raider movie, it's pretty much official. They just don't know what the fuck they're doing at this point.
Yeah.
Especially with other people's properties.
Well, the thing is, and we'll discuss it later, is no care for, like Mark said, he could have made this story better. He could have made that character better for something that he honestly has no, significant attachment to in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's regardless of whether or not they have any care about it. The bigger problem is that they just aren't interested in giving a shit about it. They just aren't interested in it. They're just trying to make a movie with the Tomb Raider name attached to it because they want to get the money out of it. That's it.
So, I mean, as much as we have issues, do you think there may be some kind of redeeming quality of this movie? Maybe
No,
something might catch us off guard about it, aside the fact that we have a bike messenger suddenly doing aerobatics?
I stick to my original statement of no, just because I think that pretty much that trailer that I just watched, or the trailer that you guys can watch, that's probably going to be like the best of the movie, honestly.
Same for you, Mark?
I don't think they have anything there that's going to be particularly interesting to watch. It's, for all logistical intents and purposes, going to be the video game storyline with any of the actual gravitas of the concept taken out. Like it's just going to be like it's for lack of a better way of explaining it, it's just going to be a thing that exists. Like it may be watchable, it may not be terrible, but by and large, it's just going to be a thing that exists. That's at a best case. Like they're not going to make anything good out of this. They clearly don't understand anything about the character. They clearly don't have anything to say about like the character or the concept or whatever. And like I mean, it looks like they've hired a good director for it, but like everything that they've shown has indicated that they don't have an understanding of what this character is about, what the purpose of this character is. It's just going to be a fucking action movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you so fundamentally just wanted to get something out there that you released the fucking poster that they released where it looks like she's having like a fucking neck problem, you don't care. You just want money.
I didn't see that one. I didn't see that one in particular to really make reference for it. Does she? Well, let me see.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at it right now, and I don't know how in that. What the hell is going on with her neck?
I don't know. Don't know.
Wow, jeez. Her head looks like it's too big as well. It's like a bad Photoshop job.
Maybe that's exactly
bad, yeah.
what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I guess our consensus is that the new Tomb Raider movie just has there's no hope for it in our opinion. So moving on, we are going to try and put our heads together. We're going to try and do something creative, something to give back to society. We're going to try and make a movie.
We're giving back to society, but
oh, hey, maybe we'll give somebody the ambition to try and do it right. We're going to try and make a movie.
That sounds kind of sexy, but not that kind of movie. Hopefully.
Shh. Later.
All right.
So, the movie we have picked, as I mentioned before, we're going to try and make a Metroid movie. We are going to pretty much sum up things. We're going to start off with like trying to see what we can do to see what we can get to fit inside this movie. Like, get into the heads of executives and see why it is so hard for movie executives or directors and whatnot to fit what they can to make it a coherent plot and all that fun stuff. So we're going to try and piece together a Metroid movie. We're going to try and break down the lore and elements of the game to see where it could possibly fit in place. So we'll start right here. We are going to talk about. Let's see here. Let's open Notepad so I can keep track of what we're doing.
Well, here's the first $1 billion question I would probably say is that out of the whole Metroid universe for it, where would you want to have the starting point? Would you want to say...
Okay.
Would you say like the first game, or would you want to pick it up
so... I would say if we were to start anywhere, it would have to be the first game. Now, do we do... Oh, man, I need to find a way to stop yawning. Okay, we
read the bullet.
Now, here's the thing. Do we want to concentrate on just the first game exclusively, or do we want to also expand with the Metroid remake on the Game Boy Advance? Which has more post-game content.
Well, here's my thing as far as that one is concerned, is that first you got to pick the actual story that you want to do. Because one thing that actually did a very, very good job on, and I think we actually all discussed this previously, Castlevania. Like Castlevania on Netflix, they picked up Castlevania 3, and they actually did a pretty decent job overall of retelling or telling the story from that point of view for it. Now, I think we should take bits and pieces from different things that may fill in more so like the backstory and for like the Chozo and whatnot. But I think that we should actually figure out which actual like story we'd want to go for first, and then take it from there.
Well, I would say we can definitely start with Metroid 1, because the story is they have a brief introduction of Samus, saying that he was a former Galactic Federation, I guess, soldier or police officer, and that the space pirates are just a bunch of menaces who go around and, attack and stuff. You can definitely do all this stuff, like let's say in a text scroll at the opening of the movie.
Already, we're not going to get any views on it just because we're making people read now. Damn it!
So we get a text scroll doing the slight back history of the space pirates, and I guess we'd have to start it off by introducing people to the Metroid. So you got people who go onto SR-388 to get a Metroid after they get attacked, and then they bring one back, and then they're attacked by the space pirates. So obviously, right there, our movie is off with a bang. A little quick action scene after a brief, narrative history set, and then we're introduced to, say, I got Laura stuck in my head. It might as well be Laura. Samus Aran, as I guess she introduces herself to the Galactic Federation when they're looking for people to go and attack the space pirates or whatnot. So let's go on from here. As we all know, that the Metroid games are a single story or a single character a story. Do we give Samus a partner in this, so someone she can bounce off and interact with in terms of being able to have the readers or the viewers make this movie more watchable, because it'd kind of be boring to watch Samus Aran run around corridors with just monologue and all that stuff. Mark, what do you think?
I'm not sure what genre you're trying to make this movie.
It's going to be an action movie, obviously.
Does it really need to be? I feel like we could do this as a combination action horror style movie and probably make it work more effectively.
I concur.
I think you're approaching it from the wrong direction. You're looking at the idea of, well, what do we include, what do we not include? The first thing we need to figure out is, how do we make this movie work as a Metroid movie? As a purely action-based movie, it's fine, I guess. But the expectation is that there's going to have to be more interaction than what you're looking for here.
Mm-hmm.
So I would probably go with sort of a combination action horror, not unlike an Aliens or something of that nature, where it's clearly Samus versus the monsters, outwitting them and defeating them using her intellect and the power that she has available to her, which allows for a more personal story and a more condensed cast.
Okay.
That having been said, I would 100% take advantage of the fact that Metroid Zero Mission is, or Metroid, the Metroid remake, is a thing that exists, because the original Metroid game has 20 lines of dialogue. No, fuck that. Let's take something that actually has some story to it, and then fudge it a little bit if we need to. We can probably get away with Samus, maybe some type of human consulting person to give her information, an onboard AI, and then the bad guys like Ridley and Quaid and whatnot.
Okay,
so you probably don't need a partner or anything, but she's gonna need people to play off of in some capacity or another in order for this to work effectively.
So kind of like Cortana. Kind of like what Lara Croft did with the Crystal Dynamics trilogy, where she has two partners, Sam and the other computer guy.
Right. I don't necessarily I don't think you could support a whole game on that. Well, maybe you could, but I feel like you could support an 1.5 to 2 hour long movie with just that interplay dynamic. I feel like you're probably put into the position of, you want to establish Samus as a character in the first couple of minutes, have her do her bounty hunter thing, blow somebody up, kill some space pirates, fucking whatever. That's your first 5 to 10 minutes, and then she's introduced to the Metroid mission. They explain the Metroids via a combination text, CGI, whatever, and then the next thing is her landing on Zebes.
Okay. Now, how do we go about, let's say, what kind of enemies do we take from the monsters? Do we take from the Metroid universe and throw them in there? Obviously, the Metroid, the Mother Brain. Do we include Quaid
I'd say
and
Ridley, at least.
Ridley? I mean, Ridley was definitely throughout the series one of the main antagonists, coming back in a Cyber Ridley form as well. Do we try and like squeeze them in as kind of like a rival that just shows up every now and then to harass Samus every now and then, or is he like a goal? Like she makes it this far, and okay, you got like your little boss that you have to confront and whatnot. What do you think? We'll go with Keith.
Well, if anything, just what I'm kind of imagining in my head, so to say, to make it more so on film, would be that maybe Mother Brain is the main antagonist, which we all know as far as this one is concerned, but maybe as far as how the movie would develop is that you kind of get the idea that Ridley is more so of the main antagonist for it, but then all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, there's somebody pulling the strings over here for it. And then kind of like divulge that information after it kind of evolves from there. After you defeat, or after she defeats Ridley, or she stumps, or she goes over Ridley, or however we want to execute that one, then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, it's Mother Brain. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, turns out that she's actually was developed and all this other whatnot. She's controlling all the Metroids. Kind of like a little bit more of so of a reveal for it, but kind of misleading you, if you will.
What do you think, Mark?
I honestly feel like, as far as, grunt enemies, you can just do whatever. But as far as the monsters go, Mother Brain is your end goal. No matter what, Mother Brain is your end goal.
Correct.
Mother Brain can basically be Shodan for all intents and purposes if you want to apply an appropriate degree of personality to the antagonist. Ridley definitely needs to have a personality because Ridley has a personality in all of these games, and if you ultimately want to go to sequels, Ridley constantly pops up. Quaid can just be a thing that Samus has to overcome in the moment. Like, we don't need to necessarily personalize Quaid. Quaid can just be a mute obstacle that Samus has to beat the dog shit out of. But Ridley definitely needs to be personalized, and Mother Brain definitely needs some type of personalization in order to be something, whether it's, just like an actual Shodan-esque character that's cruel and intentionally attempting to be hurtful, or whether it's just an AI that has a specific thing that it wants to accomplish and no particular emotional investment in it. Like, there needs to be some degree of personalization to Mother Brain as the final boss of this particular film to give Samus like that forward drive.
Okay. Now, in regards to, let's say, Samus herself, what do we include? Do we find times for there to be, let's say, a flashback to her childhood? Because the plot about characters of Samus's character development is she was a child that lived on a planet that was bombarded by the space pirates. Her parents were killed. She was a sole survivor. She was picked up by surviving members of the Chozo race. She was raised into adulthood by the Chozo. She had their DNA injected into her and mixed in and allowed her to be able to use their technology and allowed her to become, practically a superhuman. So how much of that do we cherry pick and take out, or is there actually, let's say, enough room in the movie to flesh that out about her?
2 minutes of explanation followed by some brief flashbacks whenever she encounters their technology. We do not need to fucking have this be like 20 minutes of exposition. Let this not be Silent Hill.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
actually.
there are a lot now. Yeah, as a cardinal sin, there are a lot of video game movies that actually do this. Like, like you just said, Silent Hill was one of them. They did a lot of that just at the very beginning of, let's say, Wing Commander, which was, like, again, there was, as if you want a bad example of a text wall at the beginning of the movie, there you go. You got it right there for a Wing Commander, which did a really bad job of setting the universe for the game and the movie itself. So, yeah, that down to, like, a real good set of progression. Now, how do we go about, let's say, setting wise, like how do we want our how do we want the environment of Zebus to look? Do we want it to look dark, dank, cavern? Words are hard. Do we want it to look dank, dark, brooding, like you say, that fits the scenario of a sci-fi horror movie, action movie, along the lines of Aliens? Do we want it to be a little bit more diverse and standing out? What do you think, Keith?
I think it should be just like Giger, if you ask me, but just not as many penises whatsoever. I think that sort of style, but more so of the kind of like Metroid Prime, if you will, like how that overall like visualistic style was kind of given off to it. I think that can kind of be like that, but with a little bit of like that grunge, because you are in a lot of caves, you are in a lot of caverns, or at least in the original game more so for it. How is it going to actually translate onto film is a little bit more of the head scratcher for that one, because like Mark was saying, I think that you should have like brief periods of actual explanation of more so of interacting with different things than that. So I'm not really sure how that would play out, but I think that style would be pretty interesting, to say the least.
And how about you, Mark?
I feel like in general you can probably set it up such that, like, I feel like there's a time and a place for Geiger-esque aesthetics, though I don't feel like you want to base the whole thing around it for obvious reasons. Like, it just gets to be too much. I feel like pound for pound, you can probably build it in a way, aesthetically, such that it starts off like as a basic cave, and then ultimately the aesthetics change dependent upon the location Samus is going into. Not unlike the game proper, like different locations have different visuals so as not to leave the audience bored. Like there's changes in the visuals enough to give the audience something to look at while the movie is going on, so that they're not just constantly looking at, like, you know, the same couple of things ad infinitum.
Mm-hmm. So definitely we'll see an improvement. Let's say go from cavern scenario to obviously Ridley's. I forget what the name of his zone was called. Quaid was
Brinstar.
Brinstar. Quaid was, or Ridley was the lot was the like volcanic area. So definitely we can see a setting like where she goes maybe deeper underground in order to, let's say, infiltrate the Space Pirates base. And then, of course, you'll go into an area with a much more technological look to it, kind of like that of a military base or whatnot, or a science lab where, you know, they were harvesting the Metroid's energy and cloning them so they could be weaponized. And, of course, you know, Mother Brain being at the very center of that, being a giant brain in a jar. So now that we could definitely have we have like kind of a look to the setting. We have a decent premise to the story and objective. How do we go about with the pacing? So obviously, like I was saying, what I recommended at the beginning was, of course, like, you know, maybe a text scroll at the beginning for a small setting, but we can get rid of that. We recommend, of course, starting off with, say, Samus being introduced and told about the whole Metroid pandemic. But do we maybe want to start off with like a cutscene where we're given an intro to, let's say, a shadowed Ridley as he's attacking, let's say, a Galactic Federation science vessel and stealing the Metroid, because they do touch upon that in the manual of the game, as a matter of fact. And then where do we go from there? Is it her landing on the planet and then investigating, or does she, let's say, communicate with people just to investigate her surroundings? How do we go about it from there? We'll start with you, Keith.
Is it cliche to say that I think that maybe it should be like a voiceover in the beginning for it? Like, kind of have your...
I don't think it's cliche. I think that's boring.
Okay, thank you. I was just thinking of it. I was like, well, what if they kind of did like any other like classic style, where it's like you have the voiceover and maybe like have like the text kind of pop up, and so to say, like the old school like computer screen for it, and then like you said, kind of do like those different transitions for it. Like you'll have you'll see Ridley trying to take a Metroid from it, and then maybe you have a little bit of a dialogue and or scene of her talking to the Galactic Federation, something to that extent for it. But like, the more I'm thinking, I'm like, it seems kind of boring. But again, that's kind of how I was thinking of it off the top of my head.
And how do you envision it, Mark?
Start off with like a situation where the first 10 to 15 minutes is Samus beating the dog shit out of a bunch of space pirates for an unrelated mission of some type or another. To establish Samus's credentials as a character and establish the general disagreement with the space pirates as entities. We can do a combination of like video footage and, you know, perspective cam, things of that nature, showing Ridley stealing the last Metroid, and then do some type of a thing showcasing what exactly would happen if the Metroids were unleashed. Like something where just like the Metroids are let loose in a colony or whatever, and just like all of the carnage and death, probably in a PG fashion, obviously, like no blood everywhere, but you know, like people being zombified and destroyed and whatever the crap. Like just basically have like, you know, like the SOS calls and the camera, like, you know, have like, you don't necessarily have to show Ridley, but you have like Ridley, like parts of him ripping their way through like the facility where the Metroid is being kept as they're going for the SOS call, and Ridley is like killing people, etc. It immediately establishes that Samus is a badass who takes umbrage with the space pirates, that Ridley is a badass who can tear his way through a Federation facility, and that Metroids being unleashed on society would be just the worst.
That sounds like a good beginning right there. Now, how do we go about it? Let's say let's talk about our progression, how we want it to go when she's in the middle of the film. Like, let's say the next 30 minutes or so. She lands on Zebes. She, I guess, investigates the area. She come across, let's say, her first set of, let's say, non-space pirates, like just random, like, let's say, inhabitant hostile creatures. What do we want to do in regards to, like, the aesthetics of our monsters and our space pirates and whatnot? Do we want to go with, say, CG? Do we want old school effects? Do we want to do a combination of the two? Practical effects or CG or whatever. What would you like to see, Mark?
If we're talking the individual monsters that she's killing on a base-to-base level, like just, you know, the grunt enemies that she's killing, I rarely see the need to do anything as far as practical effects go. You could maybe do something with practical effects if you're going to be doing something where, like, there's the first shot of them, but honestly, the grunt enemies are rarely going to be a threat for Samus as such. Like, they're going to be a threat when they first reveal, and then afterward they're just going to be grunt enemies. We can do them entirely in CGI. The only instance where I would want to do anything with practical effects is with, again, Ridley, Quaid, Mother Brain, and possibly the Metroid. Everything else can just be straight CGI, and I don't think you are sacrificing anything, because if you're, for as many times as these things are going to be showing up and getting, like, rent asunder, there's rarely a particular need for the sheer amount of damage that she's going to be doing to where you'll want to waste the money and waste the time building a practical effects set for a 30-second or 2-minute long shot. You know, it's not a particularly good use of your time or your set designer's money and time. The practical effects should be invested in the most important characters in this particular piece of work. Everything else, I think, can be relegated safely to CGI.
Okay. How about you, Keith? What would you like?
Full-on Star Wars. I want Muppets. No, if anything.
Here comes Quaid. Hey, Samus, I'm going to beat you.
Yeah, and I want to see the strings and everything. But no, if anything, I would say like more so of I would probably agree with Mark on that one. But the best idea that I'd give was like Star Wars. You know, how you actually have the practicals, and then you have just all these B-roll characters for everything along those lines for it. So I think that's kind of how I would like to see it more so.
I don't know if that was a medicine bottle I just heard, Mark. Maybe my comment just gave you a headache.
No, I think it's Pepto.
I was about to say, am I giving him the antacids? Am I giving him the reflux right now?
I don't know. I think
It's
he
not
was
your
more.
fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
I feel it is, so.
Fucking hotel food, man, I swear.
Yeah.
So we got at least enemies figured out in terms of what their appearance may be. Moving on into the movie, obviously she makes her way down. Now, how do we introduce Quaid? Is he, let's say, the normal size Quaid, or does she confront, let's say, the giant Quaid like in Super Metroid, or do we just leave him in suspense, like he just pops up out of nowhere, like as one of Mother Brain's generals to just attack her out of the blue?
Quaid.
Quaid
is the guy from Total Recall.
Wait, what did I? Oh,
No, that's Quada. Well, Quaid, yeah. Well.
Why are we? Well, okay. Anyway, so how about you, Keith? So, what are your thoughts on, let's say, her first encounter with one of Mother Brain's generals?
And it is Kraid. You're right.
Kraid.
Kraid. I don't really think that Kraid needs to be in it, to be honest with you, because I think it's just introducing, even though, like, God strike me down, so to say, for this, but I don't think he's really too much of the actual story mover for it, while as, like, if you wanted to do any sort of even sequel in the future for it, even though he's very, very everything in it. But I guess, I'm sorry, I'm just speaking out loud. I do apologize. I'm just trying to think of how he would fit in, and if we can really kind of like 86 him and kind of make Ridley more so of that. But now I'm thinking I'm just gonna piss myself off because you need Ridley, you need Kraid. These are two main boss characters that are actually inside of the actual story. So I'm not sure how we would be able to do that, but maybe we could just give him a Godzilla look and just take it from there.
Here's what I'm thinking. Like, if we're going to include Kraid as Samus's first serious match, like, for, struggle, I would say make Kraid an extremely big hassle for her. Like, she has to really work to overcome him, because if anything shows that Ridley is, just straight up a badass, and if we're going to have him in a scene, tearing through a Galactic Federation facility, he should probably be the hardest part of Samus's journey. I see maybe her encounter with Mother Brain as more of a battle of wits, because Mother Brain doesn't, not until Super Metroid, she is not really a physical threat in any way, shape, or form. She has to rely on her ability to control, let's say, her turrets that are within her domain. And to that, I would say Samus can use her acrobatics and her brains to outwit and defeat her, whereas she has to literally try to survive an encounter with Kraid, and then find some way to survive her biggest challenge, which would be Ridley, because the Metroids, be truthfully honest, I think at that point they do have an idea that ice is the ability, they can be frozen and killed. I don't know if that was actually ever touched upon in the early information released by in the game's lore before you get farther in the game. But I feel like those type of struggles should exist, and it might make for a good progression of the movie and show off how incredibly tough the space pirate army is. What do you think, Mark? I think we lost Mark.
All right.
All right, we'll just go over to you then, Keith.
No, I got lost along the way there. What was that?
Okay. Did you hear anything?
I did. I heard what you said. I just couldn't parse it, and I was trying to figure it out. What?
Okay, in terms of her struggles, let's say with the main villains of the movie, Kraid, Ridley, and Mother Brain. I'm thinking that they have to escalate different types of things that allow Samus to overcome her challenges. Like, Kraid should just definitely be one hell of a hassle for her. Ridley should definitely be the almost practically the end game boss for her. She has to literally fight her ass off to overcome him. And Mother Brain should definitely be more of an encounter and a battle of wits, and just
sure, it's absolutely a case of just set it up as a case of she fights off the indigenous life forms. They prove challenging. She overcomes them. First encounter with Ridley basically almost defeats her, but she is able to overcome Ridley in some way, shape, or form not necessarily defeat Ridley, but overcome temporarily and escape. Get to a situation where, Kraid is unleashed upon her. She defeats Kraid. Ridley comes back for revenge. She successfully defeats Ridley. She confronts Mother Brain. Mother Brain proves difficult and almost defeats her, but she ultimately defeats Mother Brain. Roll credits.
There you go. So what about the ending sequence where she escapes? What do you think, Keith? Does that need to be a part of it?
Well, I think it kind of definitely needs to be heavily influenced in that, because if anything, and this is just my idea, and I'm kind of like the Kevin Smith of this movie, so I do apologize in advance to anybody, and if Kevin is not watching this, I did not mean in any way, shape, or form offense. I think your movies are hilarious, but you even say yourself that you're not a magician when it comes to these sort of things. I think, again, cliche as it may be, I think that Ridley should be the final end for that, along with, like you said, Mother Brain is more of the battle of wits. I think that Mother Brain should just be like, oh, and this is how it's going to happen, and then all of a sudden starts tearing shit down as far as she actually fights Ridley, and then pretty much Mother Brain, as like this last act of whatever, starts destroying the place, and then that's when she has to get the fuck out of Dodge for it. And then, like you said, bam, ship or planet explodes, ship goes out the distance, roll credits, end movie, scene.
Mm-hmm. Now what about anything else? Like, do you think maybe Mother Brain should have like some kind of monologue? Like, how should her interaction with Samus be? Like, what do you think before the fights begin with any of them? How do you think Samus should interact with them? How do you think she should interact with, say, the AI or the guy sitting in the ship throughout the movie? We'll go with you, Keith. Start off.
Well, I don't think we really need a person sitting inside the ship. I like Mark's idea and your idea of just the AI, and I think that kind of it should be a little bit quirky, so to say, for it. Like Samus should.
I feel like there should also be somebody back at home base, not somebody in the ship, but somebody like back at home base, an operator that she would report into in some capacity, just to give it a human dynamic on top of the AI.
Okay. All right. So as far as with the human being, maybe more so of like the shrug off, so to say, because that's kind of how I picture Samus, not that moody, like fucking Metroid Other M, so to say, for it. But she's a strong, independent character for it. So as far as with the actual person, I think that it would kind of be at like an arm's length, so to say. That she would just be like, okay, this person doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about, but I'll listen to them because they're kind of the back end people. The AI, I think that she should just be a flat out smartass, and they should have like that dynamic quib, so to say, of that it's like, oh, I know this is stupid AI, but you know what? The AI constantly has my back. This is my ship. This is everything along those lines for it. And that's how I would like to see that dynamic.
Okay. And what about
Lots of tongue-in-cheek, possibly.
What do you think about her interactions before fighting, let's say, the generals of and Mother Brain herself?
Well, with the Mother Brain, I kind of having like this Unicron-esque, so to say, moments where it's kind of like very few dialogue is kind of portrayed with it, but when they do speak, it's epic. Or not so much epic, but it's like your bargaining posture is highly dubious, so to say. And go from there for it. I think it should be very like simple and to the point, so to say, for the actual dialogue, and very, very hintly said, very, very condescending Mother Brain, I should say, to her as well.
Okay. How about you, Mark? How would you like your scenarios to play out before each fight begins?
Well, in general, I feel like Samus should be the straight woman in any capacity, interaction-wise. Samus should be all business, all the time. If she cracks a joke, it should be an event, a thing people comment on. She is a bounty hunter. She is a businesswoman. She is here to get the job done, period. Emotion is not a thing she necessarily is super invested in. It's get this done, get on with my day. I feel like the AI should probably be a little bit more invested in the idea of direct emotional interaction. Not a lot more. Like I don't feel like there's any particular benefit in the AI being the wacky slapstick character, just because for the kind of movie this is, that's probably going to grate a bit. I feel like if we are going to have a wacky slapstick character, it's probably going to have to be the human interactor. And again, given that this is like an action movie with some traces of horror, you can probably do something where the AI makes occasional sarcastic comments and jokes, but is otherwise more informative and direct with its information to like kind of sort of Jarvis to Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, the human person, like the human operator that is giving information could probably be the one with the most dynamic personality of the lot, who is, the most worried, the most jovial, the most whatever, who has the most actual personality. As far as interactions with entities go, again, I already established that you could go with Mother Brain in either it's just like a dead entity that just does what it does with no emotional resonance at all, or that it's Shodan. Kraid, I don't think needs a personality. I don't think Kraid is benefited by having a personality. Like, the most you're gonna what are you going to do with Kraid? You're gonna make it Vader, okay? I don't feel like attaching that personality to the giant monster that's trying to kill you dramatically improves that experience. Just make Kraid a mute, murderous monstrosity that is a severe hindrance for Samus. And let Samus fill in the dialogue there. Ridley, I think, should be crafty and cunning, and there's a lot of different ways you can go with that particular personality, but it really depends on how you want to present Ridley as a foil. Like, you could make Ridley more insane, you could make Ridley more cold and calculating. However you want to do it is fine, but Ridley needs to have some type of base governing emotion that dictates the direct interactions that one can expect from Ridley as an entity. Like, it very much needs to be a case where Ridley as a character is defined by very specific interactions that we as the audience can constantly and easily expect from him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now, obviously, we've got our characters figured out. We've got our environment figured out. What about another major aspect of the game? How do we go about including this? Samus finding ancient Chozo technology that she's able to use and interact with, like the weapons and all the ruins that she would have to come across. How do we go about incorporating all of that into this game? Like, obviously, like we said, a cavernous area, a deep, like, underground, like, lava, like, filled area, a high technological leveled base, which is Mother Brain's, base of operations. How do we go about, just throwing, okay, here's your ice beam, and here's your power bombs, and stuff like that into the movie? What do you think, Mark?
We don't need to give Samus every single power that she gets, necessarily.
Obviously, yeah.
We can scale out a few of them, like the ice beam is probably not a particular requirement, or if it is, like the easiest way to do it is to introduce the Chozo technology once in the very beginning of the film, like not the very, very beginning, like introduce the idea of it early, introduce her discovering it on this planet fairly early, like getting, something that is useful. We could probably give her the ball form to start with. Honestly, like, we could skip that. Maybe we could give it to her. I don't like that, or at the very least, we could give it to her and give her the bomb option from jump. Like, let's condense some of this.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So some of it we can condense down into multiple different things. Like, we can say, okay, well, Samus already has, her blaster and rockets, and when she gets her first Chozo power up, it gives her both the ball form and the bomb. So we can see her, experiment with it, discover the ball form, discover the bomb she's able to drop. Boom. That's the majority of her important offensive equipment right from jump. From that point forward, if there's an instance where we need to establish something, we can do a little montage of her going through and finding a couple more Chozo statues as needed. Otherwise, you'll probably be in a position where she can maybe discover another one after the fight with Ridley that she almost loses. Then maybe, another one, right before Kraid, whatever. It's you only need like a couple of them throughout the course of the film, and you should probably
and incorporate your flashbacks, like you were saying, like so that way it's not all at once, so to say.
Right, like you could have the flashbacks explaining like how the Chizo stuff works and why it is the way that it is. Have the first introduction be the ball bomb, so that we see actually how it works. Do a quick thing where she escapes from Ridley and then she gets some degree of new tech, and then a couple of other things like during, say, some type of a montage where we see her get a few more, so that by the time she is at the point where she has to face off against Kraid, she has the majority of, if not all of, her technological doodads that we would want her to have. Like, the only thing I can think of is, like, maybe you could hold off on, like, the space jump boots or something and give them to her right before the Ridley battle. But otherwise, you can just give her the tech once in the beginning, once after the Ridley fight, and then in, like, just cutaway sequences as she, like, builds up to Kraid or something. Or, like, have the space jump be the reward for beating Kraid, and then it's like, okay, now I can go fucking kill Ridley. Whatever. That's actually, you could do that. You could have it be that Ridley's major way that he is able to overcome Samus is his ability to maneuver around due to his ability to fly, and it makes things difficult for Samus. Samus beats Kraid, gets the space jump, and she's like, all right, I'm gonna fucking kick your ass now. And now she's able to hang with Ridley and kill him because she has the space jump. Boom, done.
There you go. Now, okay, so pretty much it looks like our movie is sort of shaping up to sound like a pretty good, faithful adaptation of the game. We got, of course, our opening scene where, we establish Samus Aran at the very beginning of the movie by kicking some space pirate ass. We establish Ridley, but more as a shadowy figure at the very beginning of the movie as he infiltrates and practically destroys a Galactic Federation base as he steals a Metroid that is in captivity and escapes to Zebus. We have Samus arriving at Galactic Federation headquarters, being pretty much informed and hired on the spot to accomplish the job of retrieving or terminating the Metroid and the space pirates in the process. Her arriving on planet Zebus as she starts to make a connection with whoever it is she has to talk to, her human element. We have her AI buddy, of course, that she is in constant contact with in terms of informing her about the surroundings, indigenous life and whatnot. We encounter indigenous life as she starts to explore Zebus, going through the caverns and whatnot. As she makes her way down farther into the caverns, we'll say she has her first brief encounter with the space pirates, and then let's say Ridley just shows up and gives her a hard time, and he just runs off real quick, leaving her with, like, let's say a minor defeat, but she advances on regardless, so she keeps moving on throughout the movie. We'll say she finally finds some kind of Chozo technology that enhances her abilities for a little bit to move on, and let's say finally have her encounter again with Ridley, gets her ass kind of kicks, and she escapes and finds has a run-in with, say, Kraid. Kraid and her practically duke it out. She survives, gets that technology once again. Let's say the space jump boots or whatever, and now she feels like she has the confidence and the advancements that she needs in order to take out Ridley. She goes after Ridley this time. She is successful, although it is to the very bitter end almost, to where like they both could either or have died at any second. Ridley manages to escape though with within an inch of his life, I suppose, as we'll say Samus is about to deal the final blow. We'll have Samus traverse deeper into the caverns, finding an entrance into Mother Brain's complex. There she finally starts to, let's say, encounter the Metroids, let's say, in kind of like a Geiger alien sense, where like they're more or less lurking and then they charge out of nowhere and she has to overcome them in a sense. But it shouldn't be too hard considering of the stipulations of what she had just gone through with the previous two major encounters, to which then she encounters Mother Brain herself. And let's say maybe Mother Brain is some kind of cocky little heartless AI brain thing. kind of like a combination of what I was thinking and what Mark pretty much thinks. And let's say I don't know, do we want to go with a cliched monologue?
Nah. Well,
No.
again, I was thinking of like a Unicron sort of say.
Kind of like you're just
Monologue.
like let's say a Churchill voice saying, "You're nothing to me. I can easily destroy you." And let's say she goes about using her built-in turns to try and attack Samus, keeping her on her toes, not allowing her to get any kind of attack in. And this is where the battle of wits that I suggested comes into play, where let's say Samus, takes advantage of her newfound abilities, her increased maneuverability and whatnot, gets kind of up towards Mother Brain and, gets her to shoot at herself, so to speak, because Mother Brain's too cocky and thinks, she got it in the bag and ends up destroying herself, to which Mother Brain has the last breath saying, you know what, I'm going to take you down with me, bitch, and sets the self-destruct, and Samus escapes, makes it to her ship. We see a small explosion on the planet. We don't want the whole planet exploding, of course, because that doesn't happen until the Super Metroid game. And just for shits and giggles, at the very end credits of the movie, we have whoever our actress is playing Samus Aran standing there in a bikini. Does that sound good to anybody?
I like your ending for it, but I have one suggestion. One suggestion on that one is let's not make it the voice that was in Captain N. That's my only suggestion.
How about you, Mark? How did that sound so far?
I don't need the fucking bikini ending. I understand the point of it. I just fucking make it a goddamn deleted scene. Make it a fucking... If we absolutely have to have it, make it either a deleted scene or a post-credit scene, I guess.
Or what about
Post-
if it... That's what I...
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, post-credit, like at the end of the credits, like just before, let's say, oh, thanks for watching or whatever.
I would be happy if they could make a fucking female-fronted movie that, like, actually, treated its character seriously in that capacity and wasn't, like, sexed up or whatever.
Mhm.
So, if Metroid is where we have to do it, fine. I would rather do it that way. If we must include the bikini scene, though, fine. Put it in.
Well, not bikini scene, but just just the idea. Let's say
her underwear scene, whatever. Right.
Her. Let's say she's in her Zero suit instead.
Like the main problem with it is that from the Metroid perspective, they did it in the first game because it was a big reveal that Samus Aran
is actually a girl.
Yeah.
And then at every point after that, it's fan service. Like for me, it's we know that Samus is a girl from the very beginning of the movie. I don't need for us to do that at that point because it's just like just like we can have her in the Zero suit at the very end of it. That's fine because that's an established part of her character. I don't need her to be in the suit that she is in at the end. Like if you beat the game in the slowest amount of time, just have her in the Zero suit. If you want to do that thing, that's fine.
I kind of like that idea. If anything, like you said, like almost like an end credit sort of thing. Like you get like 2 minutes into it, then all of a sudden make it a little bit more tasteful, and maybe she's talking to said AI, and then she's actually just getting out of her actual, the various suit, and then all of a sudden it's like boom, Zero suit Samus.
Or do we want to possibly do something differently? Like most Marvel movies do this at the end credits. Let's say Ridley doesn't escape. Let's say the battle with her ends with, let's say, a cavern collapse, and it piles on Ridley, and then end credits, we see Ridley dig his way out of this pile, and he flies off. Does that sound like a better, like, post-credit ending?
I'm pretty sure Ridley dies, actually.
Well, he returns in Super Metroid.
Yeah, I think they
but he's
resurrected
bionic.
him. I think he's dead. I'm trying to think. I want to say at the end of the original Metroid, I think he just survives as normal. I think in Super Metroid he became made bionic.
Well, they do introduce, if you play Metroid Remake on Game Boy Advance, there is a Mecha Ridley at the very end of the post-game escape, which is kind of weird. So I don't know if that's supposed to be the same Mecha Ridley that you encounter in the Prime series, which takes place between Metroids 1 and Super Metroid. If that's even the same Ridley, like maybe they thought Ridley was really dead and they just decided, hey, let's make a Mecha Ridley.
Yeah, I don't think we need to do anything with that. Like, the Ridley robot is just a robotic version of Ridley. And that's Zero Mission. I don't know if we necessarily need to do that. Like, that could be something that we establish later. from a narrative perspective. Ridley as a character exists as an independent thing. I would say, they've resurrected Ridley like 3 or 4 different times at this point, so you could just have his arm shooting out at the end as if to say, no, I'm not done with you, or whatever. Because he was resurrected for fucking, Metroid Other M, Metroid Prime, Zero Mission, the remake of Samus Returns, or Metroid 2 rather, etc. You could have Ridley come back in a bunch of different ways if you wanted to, but yeah, we could just have like the arm shooting out in a post-credit scene at the end if that's a thing you wanted to do to set up.
Okay, but since we do know about Mother Brain surviving in Super Metroid, could we maybe introduce just the brain laying there, looking like supposedly it's dead, and maybe her arm shoots out of the ground or something like that, hinting that maybe her body was just hidden or captive or hidden this whole time?
I don't really see that there's a benefit for establishing that both of them survived. If you want to do a thing like where one or the other survives, and it's implied that the other one helps survive the other one, that's fine. But yeah, just do one or the other. Don't do both.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, well, took us about a good 45 minutes to sit here and break down what we think would be a faithful adaptation to a Metroid movie. Definitely there was some things we had to agree on, some things that definitely had to be left out. How would you say this would work out to you, Mark, with what we just laid down as, like, we'll say, the groundwork?
Still need to figure out a director, still need to figure out who the actual script writer is, etc., so on. But as a framework, it would probably be fine.
I was about to say, we're just talking framework. We're not talking meat and potatoes here.
Absolutely. All right, maybe we can end on the show with this. Who would you want to be your actress for Samus Aran? Who would it be? It could be an actress in her prime, an actress now, an actress classic. We'll start with you, Keith.
That is extremely, extremely tough. But you know who kind of just, I don't know, for some odd reason, she actually just stands out for me is the woman that plays Ygritte in Game of Thrones, and I'm trying to find her now, of what her actual name is. God damn it! But Rose Leslie, that's her name.
Mm-hmm.
I think that she would actually be a very, very interesting Samus, to say the least.
Okay, and how about you, Mark? Who would be your pick?
Are we saying I can pick anybody I want? Like I can just go with whoever I would want to pick
as your
like
Samus
there's no
Aran.
restrictions or anything?
Yep.
Okay, fine. Scarlett Johansson.
Okay. For me, I may sound cliched here because I'm sure she was an inspiration for the original Samus Aran. I want to say Sigourney Weaver in her prime, back during the mid '80s.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I'm not sure. I would have to see how it works out. I don't think she's athletic enough for it.
Well, she could be, but
aesthetically speaking, I feel like she could pull it off from the perspective of being like, the appropriate athleticness and things of that nature. It's just that Samus is supposed to be a certain type of visual aesthetically from everything that we have seen as she is presented, that I just do not think 80s Sigourney Weaver represented. Galaxy Quest era Sigourney Weaver probably could have pulled that off. 80s era Sigourney Weaver was a different entity altogether.
Ooh, I actually figured it out. I changed my answer. Uma Thurman.
Yeah, but when, though?
Yeah. Are we talking Kill Bill Uma Thurman? Are we talking Batman and Robin Super Uma Thurman?
No, I was thinking more so of Avengers Uma Thurman.
And yeah,
like
Nick,
the British
if you're
movie?
What's that?
Like the British movie?
Yeah, the British movie.
Okay. Why did you... Okay. I would not have referenced that, but I get where you're coming from, I guess.
I was just talking about aesthetics-wise, and I'm not talking...
that's fine. It's just let's pretend that movie doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Ouch.
All right, so there we go.
It was a bad movie. Everybody acknowledges it was a bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yep. So there you go. I mean, let's end it on a strong note. I mean, we had a lot of fun. Do you guys think we could probably do this again in the future? Try and come up with another franchise to make into a movie? How would you feel about that, Mark?
I would probably let it go for a little while, just because we don't want to do stuff like that too close together. But yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
feel like there is the possibility to do that again.
Oh, absolutely. But I think we would want to get it a little bit more formed out, so to say, because we were kind of a little off the hinge on this one.
Well, then again, it's the first one ever, so I
True.
think we did a pretty good job. I mean, we did the hard part, which was laying the groundwork for the model of a possible movie. We don't have really a script. We can't really write out a script in 45 minutes, or who our actors are going to be and whatnot.
Well, if you give monkeys a typewriter, eventually they'll write Shakespeare, so to say. But
Yeah. All right. So anyway, I want to thank you two for participating in this weird little experiment we had. I want to thank you also for making it tonight, Mark. Thank you so much for just surviving the night. You can now go sleep.
Yeah, I'm gonna go fucking pass the hell out.
All right.
Thanks, Mark.
And thank you, Keith, for joining me tonight as always.
Always. I'll always try to be here. I legitimately always have fun on this show.
Yep. And next Wednesday, for me, next Wednesday is another game jam. I'm going to make October open game month. I don't have a theme this month. I'm probably going to go back and play some games I've played on previous game jams and work towards beating them. I haven't figured it out yet. I might actually play Golden Axe Warrior, mainly because something about that game strikes me with a chord, and I just want to see how far I can go. Thursday is another 3 Vets and Noob PSO Adventures. We will be returning to PSO. We took a nice little 2-week break. We played some Doom with our noob. It was his first time actually making it through the entire Doom 1 experience. And then we played a little bit of deathmatch towards the end of that, and it was a lot of fun. You can definitely check out the video archive of that right here on this channel when you get a chance. Mark, anything coming up on the horizon for you?
I'm just very busy right now, so I can't definitively commit to anything at the moment. I really want to try and get some stuff done in this week, but again, I'm in Baltimore until Thursday, so right now I can't
Understandable.
say for certain.
And Keith, anything coming up on the horizon for you, or are you also as equally busy?
That sounds about right. Again, pretty much at this point, too much to think about, too much to do, life, if you will. So I can't really say at the moment.
Okay. Well, on behalf of everybody here in GVN Live, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Have yourself a good night.
Take it easy, guys.
Have a good one.